Welcome to Fulfilling This Belly Sting, a show dedicated to aligning a journey to a better mental health using the understandings of the ancient Norse. Join us each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Alaska time. Someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them. Look at that.
God Morgan, and happy Freyja's Day to you. Today we celebrate the Norse goddess Freyja and her amazing ability to understand the passage of energy, particularly here on Midgard. Before we get started today, I want to say talk to all of you who have liked, followed, and subscribed us on the plethora of platforms at which this show airs. I want to thank you so much. And for those of you who haven't yet, please hit the button, like, follow, subscribe us. Help us to get into the algorithms of Facebook and TikTok and YouTube, and really distribute this message to those who really need to hear it. So all the help we can get there, we would greatly appreciate. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to my friends and family at NewRealityTV. newrealitytv.com is the perfect place at which to find a message, hopefully, that resonates with you and helps you to find your own mental space with the embrace of our spiritual journeys. It's all part of this life that we lead, that will teach us and grow us, evolve us into the people that we should be. Right? For those of you who do have questions, by all means, stop by my website, norsewhispers.com, and there you can find a plethora of information about me, my message, my teachings, the shows, and most importantly, a place for those who may need just another ear to bend, or another opinion, if you will. You can visit the /coaching page at which we can start a dialogue and actually begin to communicate about what's troubling you, and hopefully find that piece of intellect that can help you move forward in your lives. If you do happen to find yourself in a position where you've got a few extra coins and you're looking to put them to good use, stop by, hit up our tip jar. There you can drop those rascals in there, and we can use them to the benefit of the show. Helps us to distribute the message, and certainly helps us to get out and travel and meet with all of you to continue to help us all find a better mental space. Thank you so much. For those of you who would like to add a comment or question about today's show, we do have live chat available on both Facebook and TikTok. So you're welcome to pose your question or your comment there, and we will see where that goes. Okay. Today we're talking about Freyja, and we're talking about what Freyja and her example really brought to us as far as our existence goes. Well, Freyja, the goddess of love and war. Those are pretty far reaches, right? Well, no, they're really not. Because what they are is they're simply a display of the management of energy, particularly here on Midgard. It's all about cosmic energy. We've spoken about this many times, and we've talked about how you and I see the world. And when we see the world, or hear the world, or smell it, or taste it, or even touch it, that information is brought into ourselves, into our mind, as energy. These images or sounds are converted to energy on the different nerves that then transport it up to the brain for processing. So it's converted into this energy, into this bioelectricity that's within our bodies. This bioelectricity then, quite honestly, is kind of at the whim of our own intrinsic energies. So if we're, particularly if we're generating the energy of a negativity or a bad mood, so to speak, that changes the imagery or sounds that we're bringing in. And instead of seeing or hearing it the way it is, we're putting a spin on it, just in the fact that we feel a certain way. As an example, if you're in a conversation and you're hearing the other person and you're seeing them, right? When we're in a bad mood, the things they say and the way they act, we may find offensive. We may take offense at whatever they're saying, right? It's because our filters are set in a negative fashion. However, if we're in a good mood and we're bright and cheery, what they're saying, even though they may be saying the same exact things, the same exact way, maintaining the body positioning the same exact way, we're going to see it differently. We're going to interpret it differently. We're going to interpret it differently because our energy manipulating this incoming energy now converts it to something that's we like, we're okay with, right? So that's really the important things, because we have to remember, as the brain takes in sensory input, processes it through the heart and releases emotional energy, which then does its own thing, and decide on whether we're going to accept the energy or not through the meat gate. One of the first things we're going to do after accepting that energy through the meat gate is that we're going to set these emotional filters again for the next present. Think of your whole life as individual snapshots, just one after another, snapshot after snapshot. And so when I process this snapshot, bing, goes into my brain, it sets my emotional filters for the next snapshot, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth, in a repetitive cycle that will continue for as long as we're accepting sensory input. Sensory input is a big part of what this physical lifetime is about. Remember, when we leave this physical form at the end, right, when our physical form ceases to function and we ascend back to the spiritual realm, we won't have our sensory input to provide information, nor will we have this emotional chemistry that the brain interprets as a feeling. We will only have memories of feelings. So whatever we're going through life, this physical existence, we're building these experiences, right? Memories. That's all we're going to have to draw on when we leave this physical form, right? Is we're going to have those memories of how it felt to be in a particular situation or a particular conversation. All of these things, that's all we're going to have left, is these memories. So it's really important that we understand that all of these energies that come in, whether they be sensory input, whether they be influential inputs, whether they be the energies that we ourselves are creating, it's going to have an effect on the way we see the world. Now, the interesting thing about altering the way we see the world like that is, think of it this way. Part of our wisdom is built on experiences. Remember, wisdom is simply knowledge plus experiences. So you're actually seeing this knowledge in action, right? So our first-hand experiences, maybe second or third-hand experiences, we're going to take that experience and we're going to marry it up to certain knowledge stacks, if you will, within the mind that kind of begins to build a relational table between these different knowledges. My favorite analogy when talking about this type of thing is to think about a car mechanic, right? If you have one person who does tires and wheels, and you have another person who does brakes, and you have another person who does engine mechanics, and then the electricians, and then body work, and interior, and all of these different people. As the tire guy does more tires, he's exposed to what's beyond the tire, the brakes, right? So he's going to see those brakes and he's going to begin to understand them. Now, all of these individuals mentioned are going to have a basic experience of how to turn wrenches, how to use a screwdriver, how to maybe use a pair of pliers or wire cutters or whatever, right? They're all going to have some of these basic skills, but now we're beginning to tie them to the many different fields within this umbrella called auto mechanics. Now, in this case, auto mechanics or an auto mechanic idea would more or less be this idea of wisdom. So it's kind of multitude of stacks. The auto mechanic knows how to do the wheels, the brakes, the engine, the body work, the interior work, the electric, all those things. He's going to kind of have some general idea of how to do all of those things. So he's related now all of these different pieces within auto mechanics to this upper level. Well, the same thing applies with wisdom. So we have an experience. Well, the experience doesn't include simply one knowledge stack. It may include a multitude of them. And so what we build with experience is this interrelational table now between the knowledge stacks. And this interrelational table is then we call wisdom. A very important part of our lives that we're going to build throughout our physical lifetime, whether it be auto mechanics or something else, right? So we're going to piece all these things together and we're going to see how they interrelate with one another in real life, in our experiences. Right? So as we put those together, we're building this thing called wisdom within our minds, which is super, super important when we talk about helping and providing guidance and wisdom towards others, helping others to find their way towards wisdom. Because again, all of this experience that we're gaining about these different things may or may not be in the first hand. We may be accepting second-hand or third-hand knowledge and kind of starting to structure these interrelational fields between the knowledge stacks. So it's kind of really what knowledge is. So it's all a matter of managing the energy. If our energy doesn't manage the incoming data, the experience, the way we would hoped it would do, now we're contorting to a degree that which is now stored in memory, right? So we're changing it because as this sensory input comes in, whether it be hearing or sight or smell or taste or even touch, as that sensory input comes in, we're contorting it just a little with our emotional filters, just a little before it drops down and we apply a full emotional response to it. We're going to contort it just a little bit. Well, if we contort it a little bit on the income and then it goes down into the heart and we release the chemistry, the hormones, right? And we're released into the bloodstream, the brain then recognizes that, attaches emotional energy at that point, okay, how we feel about this particular subject, which has now already been contorted just a bit, And now we're going to contort it even more because it's how we feel. We're going to process that through this thing, this sheath, if you will, of truth is what my ancestors referred to it as. But this sheath, then we're going to apply even more alteration to the data as we convert biochemistry to bioelectricity. So we've got to change the chemistry, i.e. hormones, up to the brain. The brain then looks at it and evaluates the composition of that chemistry against a recipe book that it's built over your lifetime. How do we feel? How do we feel when we have this chemical composition? And we see, oh, I'm supposed to feel happy. I then apply that energy to this experience. That energy then is, again, contorting, to a small degree, contorting the original image, the original experience. So now we've converted it even further before it goes through the gate of me, or the me gate. The me gate, of course, we get to decide, hey, I want to feel this way, or I'm okay with feeling this way, or I'm not. If I'm not, then we push that thing away, we move on, and we replace some of the energy of this experience with energy that we want. We get to drive, because ultimately that decision is ours. So we put our energy in there before the memory is stored. Now, this original experience that we've had has been changed several times, which is why our knowledge may not be exactly what we think it is, right? Because again, it's been converted and contorted just a little bit as it's gone through the process of you absorbing it, all right? This is super important when we talk about managing our emotions, managing the energy for healing, managing the energy for communicating with spiritual entities or our ancestors, or even harmonious living with other physical life forms. All of this can be converted with this energy. Now, and again, we've spoken of so many different energies, and when we come back from break, I want to talk about all of these different influences that can affect the way our energy is then received, and certainly the way it's translated. So we'll be right back after a real quick short message.
In the air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
newrealitytv.com.
Thank you for taking that quick break with us. We very much appreciate you and very much appreciate New Reality TV. So thank you so much. When we left, we were talking about influential energies. So let's think about now, what are some of these influential energies? Well, as you know, all of our different sensory input have different types of filters on them, right? So we may hear our favorite song, we may see our favorite person, we may taste our favorite drink maybe, or our favorite meal. We could smell the flowers or something very beautiful or something that we very much approve of, or maybe even touching soft rabbit fur. All of these things have a very unique filter of their own, right? So there have been studies, and these are scientific studies, where we've demonstrated through the study that listening to our favorite music during a time of studying. So we're studying for a final exam or a midterm, a big exam in a class we're taking, and we've got the headphones on, and we're listening to some music that we really like. It really makes us feel happy. we have a higher chance of retaining the knowledge information the way it's presented. Why? Because this filter is now applying to this input, right? We have sound coming in the ear, and that sound is then immediately getting addressed by that filter, that emotional filter on that sensory input. Okay? Then we're going to have a second layer of sensory input filtering that goes on our mood, our entire mood, right? So first goes through and says, our sound says, that sound is very pleasing. I very much like hearing in my own life. I so love hearing like the native Dene people and their flutes. Oh, it's so beautiful. Hearing the flute or maybe the drumming. I'm a drummer, so I love hearing others drum. All of these types of sounds. One of the greatest sounds I really appreciate is the birds chirping, right, in a kind of a forest setting. It is just so amazing, and I very much appreciate that. So when we get sounds like that, input comes into our ear, the first thing that's going to come to mind is that sound is going to have its own kind of energy built for it. So it's going to come into our sensory input. Our immediate sensory input filter is going to then apply this, oh man, I really love that sound. And then we get to the place where we're our mood. What mood are we in? This is why sometimes we can be in a not feeling so great. We're just kind of hum, and we hear that sound, that song, and it's just like it takes us back to a very happy memory, and immediately the world is a little bit better place, right? Have you had that experience? Of course, we all have. We hear this wonderful sound that we very much appreciate, and all of a sudden the mood changes. That's the power of these sensory input filters. Much the same way, I'm reminded of a movie I watched when my boys were little, much smaller, and the Ratatouille is the name of the movie, and it's a wonderful Disney animated film, where the antagonist of the movie is kind of at the end, towards the end of the movie, and he comes into the restaurant, and the hero of the movies, the two heroes, several heroes of the movie, have prepared him a dish, and the dish is called ratatouille, which is a French dish. Wonderful dish, by the way. But anyway, it just, as he takes that first bite, and in the movie they really do a really good job at animating this. Is the boy is just woof back into his childhood, where he's had a very rough day, and his mother, of course, is serving him a similar dish that just kind of just draws his whole focus right back to that memory of the mom caring for him and being there to support it. So it's really that's that first emotional or sensory input filter that's going to do that. Is it's going to connect with a memory, and the rest is kind of. What this is going to do is it's going to allow the sensory input that we've just received, this experience that we've had, is now going to come in more of an original form. It's not going to be contorted by our mood. It's not going to be contorted by other things. It's not going to be so susceptible to influential energies. Now, as I mentioned before the break, I said lots of influential energies around us, and there is many, many, many things. The whole world of advertising and marketing has been built on the use of influential energy. And essentially what influential energy is I'm giving you my opinion and saying, hey, this is the way it is. And we each have this ability to whether accept or deny that. right? Well, some influential energies are not as obvious as others. Advertising and marketing is kind of obvious, right? They're selling a product, they're selling a service, they're doing whatever they're paid to do, so to speak. And so that influential energy is fairly obvious. Now, in other influential energies that are going to come into our lives, they may or may not be as obvious. They may be much more subtle and begin this process of influencing you. I remember a time where I was in social engineering, and what we did is we kind of looked at, and when we wanted to change somebody's attitude towards things, we would slowly release things, visuals or audio things, slowly introducing this topic. So, and we would slowly build up over time, and this would then be a little less obviously to the individual who was receiving this energy, but nonetheless it was just as effective, if not more so. Why? Because the first time we kind of look at it as a fluke. We may look at the second one as more or less a fluke, but now it's getting a little bit more validity just in the fact that it's been duplicated. Then we add some authenticity, some level of authority, right? And so, some doctor comes on the TV with his lab coat and says, this is the way it is. We have now, by very nature of society, kind of given this information a little bit more credence now, because a doctor is on the TV telling us about something. So he has this perceived level of authority. And so now he's providing influential energies at two levels. He's providing influential energy at the level of telling you about a product, whatever it is, or a service. But then he also has this underlying influence that is, he's a doctor, so he's medically savvy. He should know these things, right? So we've now addressed two different levels of influence on your thought process. All of this requires that we simply do some research. Talk about a lot of dark energy. Dark energy is simply that which is not illuminated. It simply means that we have yet to really learn anything about it. It's like a dark room, which is the way my ancestors have described dark energy, is like a dark room, in that we have very real chances of smacking our legs on stuff, stubbing our toes on things, because we can't see in the dark as well. But once we turn on the light, i.e., we become illuminated, we educate ourselves, we provide ourselves with knowledge and wisdom towards this event, towards this room in this example. Now all of a sudden we can see all the tables, we can avoid all the furniture, we can avoid the Legos and whatever else is on the floor that we might step on, thereby navigating through the room, navigating through our lives successfully, safely, without stepping on a Lego, right? So this is really the concept behind dark and light energy. Light energy is simply that which is illuminated. It has intellect as part of it. It connects to other parts of our illuminated knowledge. It's really intellect that's being given to us. Versus dark energy, which is simply that which drives us to ask questions, right? So we're looking for answers. We're looking to illuminate this energy. So this is the dynamic that's going to occur throughout our lifetime. We're going to gain intellect, and then we're going to gain questions. Intellect questions, intellect questions, intellect questions, and so on and so forth throughout our lives. Absorbing this. So this intellect needs to have a level of validity to it. We need to give it some level of authority. Now, in some cases, we simply allow it. We simply say, oh, it is what it is, and we accept it. In other cases, we may check for its authority. Do you really know what the heck you're talking about here? What is your credentials? Where do you come from on this? right? So these are influential energies that will affect the way you see all the sensory input that you take in over your lifetime. Your sensory input, your emotional modulation of that energy is what you know, is what you remember. This is what makes every living form different. This is what makes us incredibly unique, is this modulation that can happen. So, next time we're thinking about Freyja, we need to think about the energy that's moving around the cosmos and how that energy affects the way we think and the way we feel, the way we see our world. All of that is affected by this energy. And Freyja, of course, understood this, which is why she could be the goddess of war and the goddess of love. Simply a matter of understanding energies that were moving around in the realms of her existence. So really think about that energy, moving it in and out, because again, as we bring in energy, that's the energy that we can use to heal the body, heal the mind, heal the spirit. All of these things can be really healed and grown and evolved based on energy received. So it's super important that we recognize our role, our responsibility in accepting this sensory input. All right. So today, of course, we celebrate the goddess Freyja. My favorite of all the gods and goddesses is Freyja. Her and her brother Freyr, of course, they really represent the understanding of peace and love. So I very much appreciate who they were, who they are, and what they mean to me. So I hope that you will take today and recognize maybe not the names, maybe you have another name for your gods or goddesses for this day, but recognize the power of love, the power of energy management. All right, and what's coming into your brain and why are you allowing it or not allowing it? Right? This is an evolution of growth. All right, my friends, enjoy Freyja's Day. I do want to remind you, for those of you who follow the show, next Saturday, woohoo! Big drum circle that'll be happening at Beluga Point. Hopefully we'll have cameras and everything out there and be able to broadcast to you live from Beluga Point as we watch the sun come up and we celebrate the arrival of the sun, of course, being on the solstice. Very important day to welcome the sun. So, especially here in Alaska. So we very much appreciate it. So hopefully you will join us for that. In the meantime, I pray that you will have a wonderful weekend. You will draw enough energy to heal your mind and your heart and evolve into the person that you want to be. I will see you again when we celebrate Money's Day, and we will talk about the control. Thinking of this energy, controlling how it affects our very existence from the beginning. All right? So we will see you again all on Money's Day. Love and light, my friends.
Watching for Felina's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Wolf Hefnar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.